All right, it looks like it started recording. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to the fifth and final day of Geo Week 2025. It's been a great week, very strong presentations, and it looks like we're going to end the week with even more stronger and more interesting presentations. So I'm going to give it to Carter Hughes to present on simplifying park events and programs in GIS. Take it away, Carter.
Great. I'm really excited for this presentation because has been a long running project for a couple years, and I think it combines everything that I love working for parks. That um, on on one side I get to incorporates data, GIS, things that I love, but I also love working the great various diverse people and programs across the parks department and just learning about them. And plus, I'm also a very avid attendee of park programs and stuff, whether it's Montgomery Parks or at home. So I'll kind of show you some of that to get us started and go through the various things that we've made progress with as it relates to programs with in events with GIS. So like I said, I love the park events and programs. I think both of these are where I attended ones with acoustics and nails. In the past years, I think a lot of people have probably seen me at these, and I've went to with other staff to these as well. I love any event that I can take my dogs to. My dogs were at both of these. They just for some reason cropped them out in this other picture. Also, like any event that I can take my wife or grab a beer. So it's no coincidence that the pictures are both from acoustics and nails. And the cameraman just loves following me around for some reason. On the one on the left, I had like 5 pictures on Flickr. This is only one of them, but that's my favorite because my dogs are one's looking real defensive and alert, and the other one's has no idea what's going on. Um, But I also, bring you some history like Keegan does every GIS day, I happened to attend a program just last night locally I found really interesting, and I'm just going to share a quick story about it right here. This was one part of their series that, similar to Acoustics and Nails, is History on Tap, where we went to Alstead Ale House, a local bar in the area where I live at Harper's Ferry, and it's like they give talks about history while you patronage the place and enjoy what they have to offer, and the food and drinks were pretty good. So this was the most recent story that I'm going to share, and it's very recent. Like I even lived here at this time, and this is why I felt it's very funny and coincidental. There happened to be, let me go back here, because in my notes, a recent Jonathan spy that came to Harper's Ferry, both of them being Jonathan and Diana Tobe, married couple. Jonathan was a U.S. Navy nuclear engineer, and he had the smart idea of sending packets of data to a foreign entity that is unnamed, April 2020. However, that foreign entity immediately shared these details with the U.S. government, like immediately. However, it was kind of a game of cat and mouse for a long period of time because they ultimately did not get caught until October 9th, 2021. And the issue is he was so thorough and discreet with everything that they were just able to get tails on him, but they were able to finally convince him to do a physical dead drop where they can intercept him in person potentially, or at least gain knowledge of his identity by convincing him to come to Bolivar Heights of the National Harper's Ferry National Historic Park. And I know this very well because this here is literally 1 mile from my house. I walk by it at least once a week with my dogs, and the reason that they were able to convince him, he's like, because there's plausible deniability of like, am I just visiting the park, or am I doing a dead drop and leaving an SD card with inside of a peanut butter sandwich, which he did in June 26, and then another time he left an SD card inside a Band-Aid wrapper. So you always finding creative ways trying to not get tabs on them. However, he forgot the most important detail when you're coming to visiting any park, and that is leaving no trace. Which I was all the headlines were making jokes of the fact that he put a SD card in a peanut butter sandwich, which got to give him points for at least creativity. So to continue with the fun, gonna get an audience poll because of how diverse the events and programmers are. I don't think I've had the opportunity to even meet or talk to every single person who's in the audience as it relates to events and programs. So I'm going to enable a poll real quick and go to the first question. Let's see. It's my first time using polls. It looks like it's working. All right, so take a look at the chat, or it looks like it's popping up for everybody. This first question is, what is your relationship to events and programs and their data? Do you run these programs? Do you just use their data? Would you like to use their data, but you do not already use it, or you just don't use it at all? What is your relationship to that? And then there's a fifth one, events, programs. What are those? Oh, Angela, you need a multi-select. I guess assume if you run events and programs, you also use their data. That's the assumption I made here. Because I don't know how you run programs without data, to put it simply. So it looks like we have a pretty diverse group. I don't know if you can see the whole details, but I'll put them in the chat if you can't. Okay, you can. That's great. So we have a lot of people that run programs here, which is great, or use their data. That's a large majority. And then those remaining 16% would like to use it. So that's pretty interesting. Definitely, obviously not a coincidence because this is a very apt title and probably why you came here. And the next question, let me launch it in the polls as well. And this is a somewhat of a tricky question because it's a matter of debate, even among the event planners and park programmers. What is the difference between a park event and a park program? You can tell it's a little obvious because of the joking ones in there. It's a program is, there are programs that run on Windows, but those aren't the programs we're talking about. And some of these, like an event is a party, a program is a lifestyle. I don't think that is 100% untrue. Yep, and you're right, Annalie. It's one of my favorite SNL ones. Keenan Thompson pictured. This is also a favorite meme of mine, but so yeah, it looks like pretty much everyone got it if you submitted thus far. Event is a one-time thing. A program is reoccurring or ongoing. However, those are not hard and fast rules. I come to find out there are events that reoccur a little bit more often. There are ones that, like the Ale Trail, they just reoccur on an annual basis. And the definition is not super exact. But Lucia got a pretty good example there in the chat. So that's being said, I'm going to go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes, or should I say the spaghetti of the presentation. So the reason that we started getting started work with events and programs with GIS and with data tools is because there was found to be a lot of common problems, or challenges, I should say, with how the data, where data was for parks as it relates to events and programs. It's no secret, many of you are, as we found by that poll. Um, you run events, you run programs. You're parts of many, many different teams. I think this is more of a feature, not a bug. Like I said earlier, it's one of the great things about this department is all the various different types of events and programs that we offer, and as a result, that's a bunch of different teams. However, a big drawback of that is that the data among them has not really been centralized until in any capacity until very recently with the topic that I'm giving here today. The one place where that data is largely centralized is RecTrack. However, RecTrack is for people booking or signing up for these things, and RecTrack doesn't have every event, nor does it have every program. Not every event requires you to register, like an Acoustics and Ales or Ale Trail. And I keep mentioning those because, like I said, those are the ones I like to attend. But if you wanted to track your data that's beyond things that you can put in RecTrack, like RecTrack has your registrants, but it doesn't actually have, you can't go back in there um, and put like who actually attended, or you can't add additional details like the actual coordinates of where that program was located. You can just put a name with or a name of where the place was, but beyond that, like RecTrack isn't really GIS, and in my opinion, and I may be biased, but when it comes to tracking your data, unless you have the geography in your information system, the IS, you're working with incomplete information. So you're just really lacking that necessary additional sauce here. And as I said earlier, this has been a long journey. It started with park activation. I believe that these developments and talks started after we had met them with the planning of the GIS Strategic Action Plan. And those talks kind of percolated into, okay, we have a spreadsheet of these events, but we're having trouble with not having this data in GIS. So that they got that ball rolling. And then from there, it's like the snowball just continued to grow with program access and the nature centers because we started to see the commonalities between the events and the programs, and we all kind of found ways to like kind of copy each other's notes and expand upon like the database and tools that we're building in GIS among each of these. And I'm going to go through each of these one by one. And I also feature some of these things that are planned, like a dashboard, a RecTrack integration, and incorporation of other programs at the end of the presentation, to foreshadow perhaps what's to come later this year and next year. So park activation, what they were really challenged with is, like I said, is like they had this information in a spreadsheet. Well, a spreadsheet is not GIS. You don't know where the stuff is. You can put a park name, but unless you're doing some really tricky stuff with like VLOOKUPs and you're not in the information, you can't really keep it up to date. They couldn't have the ability to identify if their events were an equity focus area or a disadvantage area, or what management area, management region, where these questions ended up becoming very, very common for them. Also, like semi-selfishly for myself, we were looking at needing this data for park visitation purposes, and we couldn't really have them share that data with us in the way that we needed it unless it was in GIS. And likewise for a lot of other people, because you just can't share fundamentally a spreadsheet that you work with your data with the tens or hundreds of people in the department that need some of your important data. It just does not work. And that's something that needs to be digested in a lot of places, and a lot of places teams are coming to that realization and seeing the benefits of that. And a plug for the next presentation at 10. Doug and Jackie show another great example of that. So I'll get to a demo of what this tool looks like real quick. And we can see in here that they've inputted as many as 218 park activation events thus far, and which is crazy. But the numbers even get bigger once we look at some of these other users, which is great. They're able to search and filter for acoustics, any of the different types of events that they have by name, the status of them, because they're able to keep track of active and canceled, because that's also very important to know looking back, like when are the times that they've had to cancel them over time and where and for what reason. Able to filter to certain dates because this starts pretty early in their data set, and maybe you only want to look at ones that are in the current fiscal year. And they're also able to, like I said, get that management area information pretty quickly and get those numbers when they have interactions with the park operations that are a very important aspect of executing these events. And obviously, you get this very pretty map, and where you can see the geographic patterns of where these events are. It's probably no surprise that we have much more events in the much more dense areas of the county, but we do have like a lot of representation among the northern areas of the county too. And you're able to at any time like filter for basically anything you want and take a look at this, and they're able to edit directly in here their data and switch things from active, canceled, or declined, and really get into their data right away. And this tool, at least, I can't take credit for. This is one that our great GIS specialist Tiffany Will built. However, I did work with her in defining the layer itself. And another cool thing is you're able to print these maps anytime live, and they look like this. So this is just one of the whole county. It's something that is really cool feature that is brought to some of these GIS web apps, because you can't really get rid of the need for those paper or PDF maps fully. They have their own purposes, and they will continue to exist, and this just makes it easier for them to share these when they need to, whether it's a question to Mitty, Darren, or whoever, Gary, whoever it might be. It just helps their everyday job be done a lot more quickly as it relates to like reporting or sharing or keeping track of their data. Next, with program access, where we started to see the commonalities is that I had been long collaborators with this team because they're also part of my management services, and we've done work on like automating their emails to people who request support services so that they can confirm them and other things. And one of the things that we could never really conceive of is like, how are we going to track all these different support services that you do for different programs at events? Because I, being like a database person, I know that you need, like, we can't just use a spreadsheet for that. We can't just use even just a simple layer for that only. We need an ability to track this information in a very like structured way. And it seemed insurmountable during the first few times that I met with Janine, and I think even Genevieve at the time, when the program access team was much smaller. And once we kind of tackled that hurdle with park activation, like the light bulb started to click, and I'm like, okay, they're tracking events. I'm going to these events. I'm seeing these sensory retreat tents or ASL interpreters live there. Like, it makes sense for this to be in the same place. Like, I'm on the ground, I'm seeing this like live. So like, let's find a way to work this out. And that we started just thinking of this only being where they track events, because it was, at least in early part of this last year, only park activation who was contributing to it, and they only done events at the time, though they want to do programs in the near future too. The Park Academy series, we started doing so with Program Access, and I'll show you here their tool as well. Their tool is really, really cool. So let me zoom out here as well. These are all of the events and programs, and they have the ability to filter ones that are identified, they've already identified as theirs, or activation has put in, or the nature centers have put in. And with Program Access, like their role, it's support. So they're not necessarily at every single event or program, but they do need the capability to essentially identify that they're at any event or program, because they can provide support services to basically anything, whether it's to the event or to the event individual. So that's where it started to make a lot of sense to have this be a shared data set. So if I click here, I can look at just the ones that they've identified that they've made contributions to with their support. I'll zoom into one couple here because Wheaton has some very big ones that are very exemplative. This one, these here, Shine Brighter Together, are ones that Program Access even puts on. And you can see in these tabs some of the information that they're able to track now. So this is all the common information that's been shared between activation and Program Access at this point. Obviously, if you're tracking an event, which is at the end of the day, it's just what it is, a place, a time, like a date and a time. And we have that Shine Brighter Together, the date, times, what happened, where it was. But what we built is the ability for them to log all the different support services that they offer to these events. This one is a very diverse example, unsurprisingly, because this is an event, Shine Brighter Together, that celebrates, I believe, it's during Autism Awareness Month, and they have a lot of things available at that time. So they're able to put in their staff and say that they had 5 seasonal staff, 4 full-time at this event, or put in that they had a social narrative there as well, accessible shuttle cart, access on wheels trailer, and their sensory retreat tent. And also, like, there's these different events too, like this one here, Trail Trekkers. This is an example one where they just off. I don't think that they put that on themselves, but they happened to contribute 2 full-time staff to that event. Or this one here, a lot of these might be Trail Trekkers as I click on here, because of the BMX pump track there. See Bocce in there, and it's also really cool here too. We leveraged, I should say, and Annalie, no, this support services data is not pulled from RecTrack. RecTrack does not store this information. So like this is a very good example of where this is not to denigrate RecTrack. RecTrack is for registration. It is not for program access purposes. So this is where we had to find a way for them to track their information specific to their support services in the GIS system. And we're able to go in here and add records for any particular thing that they have, identify if it's an event or individual. And as I flip through here, it's pretty cool. We enabled smart forward capability so that with the access on wheels trailer, that's something that's coming in like a caravan it could have any of their equipment available at that time. It's often carrying it. So they're able to identify all the different equipment that they had. And if they know how many users of that with any companions, and same thing with here, the adaptive equipment, maybe they didn't have the trailer, but they still brought various equipment. And same thing with just identifying like shuttle cart, how many ASL interpreters came there, how many sensory retreat tents. And notice, like, as I flip through, not everything is just showing up every time. That's what's cool about like the smart forms and these GIS tools is you can choose what shows up so that's you don't have to enter like redundant or unapplicable information. You only have to enter the things that are applicable. Like when I click staff here, this is the only time that seasonal and full-time staff or volunteer fields pop up. And I'll disregard edits because I'm just fumbling around here. And that's what's really made it powerful for them, because before this was at least two spreadsheets. I don't know the exact count. And it was just a flurry of information shared among the program access, and we were able to consolidate it among just a single database in GIS. So I'll flip quickly to nature centers so I don't get behind on time. Nature centers as well, we started to seeing these commonalities. So one of the things that program access innovated was, why don't we also just track our programs here? I'm like, well, why not? Like, all I have to do is add one field. And then it also started to click. Amanda had that idea, by the way. Started to click like, oh, why don't the nature centers do that? They run a lot of programs. I had met with Angela probably years ago to talk about the same exact data with her. And I ended up having talks with Grace, and during like an office hours data thing at Green Farm, and we're like, this makes a lot of sense to do because they're kind of like a small microcosm of the entire challenge that we've had with event and program data among the department, except it's localized to just the nature centers. There's 5 nature centers. They all had separate like spreadsheets or forms that enter data into spreadsheets. Um, about their programs. So every time that Grace had a question or anybody had a question about how many programs there were or which ones were contributed to like lessons about stormwater or anything, they had to go all the separate ways, 5 separate nature centers, recompile their data, and then report that. And they all had separate um, databases for all this information. And now it's all in one place and it's all really consolidated. And it's the ultimate goal for this is this is one where we still have a lot of active plans to advancing. Likewise with the other tools, but the workflow here with nature centers, they have a lengthy planning and really robust reporting needs that I think we're going to be able to incorporate in the near future with these programs that they put on. So I'll also share their tools here real quick. And these are the most recent, even as of this past week, been put on, and they've only inputted programs just to this fiscal year. And there's already 461, which is crazy. And the other asterisk here is Black Hill has not been fully onboarded onto this. As you can see here, it's the one nature center that is missing from this list. So this isn't even all the programs that have been offered. Another core thing that Angela emphasized was the ability to track in their walk-in and drop-in. So this is not purely all like the programs per se, but it also provided a consolidated place for them to track their walk-in and drop-in information as well. And the way that we did this is working with Angela, she pretty much helped design the smart form for me because she had done so in a form herself, and we replicated a lot of that and then expanded upon it with the power of Survey 123. And I'll open this here real quick, because while that is embedded there, go into a new tab, allows you more information. They're able to like identify the nature centers, and what's really cool is it automatically drops the point where the nature centers are, and Nature on Wheels is the mobile one, so it doesn't drop a point for you, which is kind of like pretty cool. So they're able to drop a point and then identify the program, the date, the time, status, and like I've been foreshadowing, we want to integrate rec track or VSI data, and they're able to identify the unique identifiers here so we can later integrate that information. A lot of their reporting is dependent on tagging, like this was the climate program, or this was one for teens, and this contributed to pro-social connections. These are the type of questions that they get all the time, or how much time they're spending on programs, the amount of staff, volunteers, the registered number of adults, where they're entering this information right now because we don't have VSI integrated, but we plan to in the future. They're just doing this to hold themselves over, the amount of drop-ins, the goals that are part of this program. And now we're starting to get to some of the things that are more program and reflection based, where they're able to even after the program has been completed, reflect on what successes and challenges that they had, any comments that they had, or any notes. And before even a program gets done, they're able to preemptively put this in, like maybe weeks ahead or a month ahead, identify if this is like a new program that is like treading new water, describe what the program is, the ages, the cost, the minimum, maximum participants, so that they just have all this information. And before, I think right now, like they're using like a Word document template to kind of do their workflow. And I think we're going to migrate some of that to use fully the Survey 123 and work GIS database and have that automated with Power Automate as well. And it's been, I think, a real godsend to them, so that we can get, as you can see, 461 and counting programs all into the same place. And before, like I said, this would be 191 in one spreadsheet, 179 in another spreadsheet, and like another 60 in another spreadsheet, another 25 in another spreadsheet. It's so this just being able to consolidate this has been really, really helpful with them. And it's also, I can't even get into all the features now because I'm running a little short on time. But they have the ability to edit their stuff, even copy a program here, because they run, like we talked about earlier, programs are things that repeat, so they don't have to re-enter the same information over and over and over again. They can kind of copy and paste because Survey 123 allows you to do that. It's just there's a lot of things here that I I I got to learn, and we've got to expand upon, thanks to doing this. And it's it's not, hopefully this is not the final combination where you're going to make this even more advanced and more supportive to what they need. And I'll get into some of those now as well. So, but hopefully you can hear this because it's kind of funny. I am going to phone a friend if she's available. Alex, if you're able to get ready here.
Hi. Oh my
Sorry,
God.
there's no smooth transition, but
I did not know you put that in.
but Alex is going to be building the dashboard with events and programs, and that's why I asked her to speak real quickly on this component because she can do a much better job than I here.
Oh, thank you, Carter. Yeah, so I saw a few questions in the chat about seeing other folks' data and all that good stuff. So that is a primary objective of this dashboard. The idea is to pull together all of the data that's being collected through those tools that Carter beautifully demonstrated and has created. And some of the questions we really want to answer with this dashboard, it is in the works, but some questions that we've gathered are, has our engagement of the 55 plus community changed over time? That's something that a lot of folks care about, a lot of folks at our parks care about. So using a dashboard to answer that would be super helpful. Things like how many groups do we have to turn away due to capacity, due to staffing limitations? We want to use this data to tell a story about our programs. What is the distribution of our support services across different event types? This will help with planning for the future. And there are so many different questions that we want to ask, and now we finally have the data to answer them. So we're really excited for this next step, and I appreciate being able to preview it with you all. But So yeah, we'll be sharing it widely once it's ready. But as you can see from this graphic, we got all the data. Now we just got to put it together. Back to you, Carter.
Thanks, Alex. And one of those aspects that the dashboard would be able to uniquely highlight is the data that's coming from RecTrack. We probably have met with most, if not all of you. If you work with programs or you work with RecTrack, please put it in the chat that you do and you have not met with Alex and I. We want to meet with you. Because we've been meeting with like a dozen groups and counting of different park staff who utilize RecTrack, and many of them doing programs and identifying their current and future needs so that we're able to eventually pull the active Montgomery / RecTrack / VSI, lots of synonyms, aliases, I should say, data all together into our Azure database that we use as the backend for all of our dashboards, like we have with GIS data, EAM data, and eco counter. And once that's pulled, we'll be able to have complete visibility to that data as well without staff having to re-enter that, like the number of people who registered. And also, very importantly, be able to do like map and analyze like some of the data on the attendance and where they're coming from and what demographics they are. That's something that I think will be as soon as we can get that RecTrack data that's been requested so many times from everyone that we've heard with events and programs, where they want to know where their registrants are so that they can better serve them. Where do they have gaps? And what type of demographics are there so they can better mold their programs to correspond to them, or find where there's gaps in the demographics to maybe find programs that are better relate to those demographic groups, whether it's a gender or age. And I believe RecTrack, I think that's all RecTrack might have. But that still gives us a lot of visibility that we do not have currently at a grand scale. Because not that these things haven't been done before, they've only been done at a micro scale. And for specific groups with small reports, this has been something that has been very common to the whole department. And that's why we need to use these larger data tools and like a dashboard and this integration to really make this happen. And perhaps most importantly, this is another call to action. We want to get the other programs incorporated into this database as well, if it makes sense for them. If you're the way that you count and report your programs, all you do is need RecTrack information, great. Maybe that's very simple and it's very easy for us to calculate. So that once we get that RecTrack integration, maybe we're just able to help you in the dashboard and that's it. But if you have data that you can't put into RecTrack or you track in a spreadsheet right now, like that is what these tools are for, to help give us an avenue to track this information in a consolidated and helpful way that is also modern, and it's a lot easier to do than a spreadsheet, I should add as well. So ones that we've talked about, having met with Annalie and Todd Bauer before, as Roots to Rocks is perhaps a prime opportunity for this, because like one of the challenges that they've had is that the people just mass sign up, and the registrations are very, very different from the actuals in terms of who actually shows up. And I assume it's probably just a spreadsheet at the moment that's just being compiled of that information, and that would be perhaps much better suited for the GIS and a lot simpler as well. And like I highlighted earlier, it breeds this cross collaboration with these other teams like Program Access, especially, who might be supporting Roots to Rocks with adaptive bike equipment and stuff like that, and staff to help support that. So they might even already be tracking that information in GIS as it is because of that. And likewise, like another big gap that we see is cultural resource museums. We haven't been able to meet with them yet. Cheryl, if you're on this call, please reach out. We've been trying to get in touch, because we probably see a lot of commonalities with them in the nature centers with how in depth their programming is. And having lived in Harpers Ferry, attending a lot of historical, cultural events and programs myself locally, I know how much goes into them, having spoke with some of the programmers here. So these are the other opportunities that we'd like to capitalize on here as well. So if I think we're right at 9:45. So I still have the remaining 15 minutes if anybody has questions, and I will at least try to chat any other questions and look through the chat once we get off here, if there's anything else that remains.
Yeah, Carter,
Chris?
thank you so much for the great presentation. Yeah, I'll let you take it away if you want to answer some questions from people raising their hands. And then there were some great questions in the chat too. I don't know if you want me to read some to you right now.
Yeah, if you could point some of these out. I think Weaver,
Someone.
though, has his hands up. We can get to him.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, Carter. Hey, great. Fantastic presentation. This is, I think you know that I have been interested in this, for a couple of months, and I had mentioned this to you a ways back, and you had said hold off because I'm in the works with something, and this is exactly it. So, what I had mentioned way back was our construction guys, the CMs and the CIs, and even our project managers. What
Right.
happens is a CM goes out and or a program a program gets scheduled for a particular park, and we have a construction project scheduled at the same time, and we end up sometimes having these little overlaps. And so this would be, if we could get, I think what Alex is working on is just kind of like the combo dashboard.
Yeah.
If that was accessible to our CMs and our CIs and even the project managers, this would be fantastic for them to look at and kind of give a filter of the next 6 months and say, all right, let me look at this park and see what's coming up in the next 6 months, so that they can have a little bit better coordination. So that this is fantastic. This is really going to help.
Yeah, it's a really good example where if once we get the integration, but also with the current data collection in GIS, it can provide you a lot more like identification where you have those conflicts with construction.
It's a
And
question was, how accurate are the point features? Or do they just select the centroid of the park, or how detailed can the users get when they're inputting the data? How detailed is that XY?
Great question. They try to put it at the best, most appropriate location. They don't just necessarily import it just like to the centroid only. However, that is how we imported like a lot of the previously collected data. They do drag them to like the most approximate location. However, that being said, a point is not super descriptive of where an area is. So like an event like the Ale Trail that spans a large portion of Rock Creek, a point doesn't really describe the full nuances of this. So it's just one of the nuances where using points in GIS is very easy for data entry, and allows us to keep it simple. And probably the best way to flag these conflicts would not be at the specific geographic level. It would just be cross-referencing the parks themselves, because that would mean that you would be able to validate, oh, well, that's just on the other side of the park that
Right.
time. But you'd still be able to get notified that there's that potential conflict.
To work at the park, correct? Yeah. So
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, it allows for it. It gives them the kind of that impetus to say, hey, I better reach out to somebody here because there's something going on at this park during that time. So yeah, that it satisfies the goal. So yeah, I'll be reaching out to Alex then and you to look at this in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll prioritize the hands up, because the questions in the chat, I can at least retroactively insert them in the chat since they're written down. So Dominique.
Yeah, thanks, Carter. This was a great presentation. I don't have a question, but more so a comment. I'm super, super excited for this. I don't know if everybody on this call knows or not, but a few months ago, almost a year ago, I was tasked with leading a programmers committee. And it's just a bunch of programmers across the department in different divisions coming together and kind of talking about various aspects of the programming process. And one of those things, there's various agenda topics that we discuss kind of on a quarterly basis. But one of those things that came up was the ability to track programs after the event or after the program and track those things like attendee numbers and locations and all of that good stuff. And we have a meeting coming up with Alex in like a week or so to talk about this and to make sure that we're streamlining and getting some of those standardized questions or fields to be able to track this across the board. I don't know if this was mentioned earlier. I came into the training a little bit late, but in the fall of 2024, we had our semi-annual. Was this talked about already, Carter?
No, but this is a good story because
Okay.
I'm familiar.
So in the fall of 2024, we had our semi-annual presentation before the council, and the kind of topic or theme that we went with for the semi-annual was our programs and attendee numbers, and trying to kind of show the council the breadth of programs that we offer, but also how expansive they are across the entire department. And one of those things that we had to do was go around literally to each programmer and ask them to give us their data. And not every team had that data on hand, or they had to go back and calculate it and look back at their spreadsheets. And having something like this that we could just quickly pull up a dashboard will make things so much easier. I could see us using this data definitely in the future. So I'm super, super thrilled about that. I'm getting ready to send an email out either today or tomorrow with some additional information about the Programmer Summit and the Programmers Committee and some of the things that we've kind of decided as a group to move forward with that has been vetted by leadership, Mitty, Darren, and Gary, that I'm excited to share with everybody. But we're going to keep working on these things and eventually have a meeting where we can share out some of these ideas and topics. So looking forward to all of that. Super pumped about this training. I love it. I can't wait to see all of this come to fruition. So thanks to everybody involved.
Thanks, Dominique. And I look forward for us to continue that. I does look at our calendar in the near future that we've been added to some of the programming summit meetings in the near future. And while we're not programmers ourselves, the data behind that is very important. So I'm glad that Alex and I will be part of those conversations, hopefully ongoing, as we advance. Annalie, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I had a comment, and obviously, like, great job, awesome job as always. I wanted to make a comment. As I saw in the chat, there was a question about trying to capture data that for events that like aren't on parks, and I wanted to highlight the conversation that you and me and Alex had, and I think Todd was on that call about how there are times when our meetup locations for Rooster Rocks events aren't necessarily on Rec Track. So we were having to create, locations in Rec Track, or just picking, say, Northwest Branch, but not specifying where in Northwest Branch for something actually was.
Right.
And we would host like several events, on different points of Northwest Branch 4, but only selecting that, so you don't know which location was more popular than the other, and so on. So that was one issue that we did bring to you that I know you will fix, because not it wasn't your issue. It's like a Rec Track lacking in Rec Track. So that's the data that we pick up in the Roots to Rock survey, or at least that we try for walk-ups, which is another major thing, is having to cap people in Rec Track.
Yeah, it would be great for us to companion Rec Track with more publicly accessible maps so people know where some of these things are. That's been previously explored with athletic fields. I hope it hasn't appeared on the website yet, I don't believe, but it should be able to, hopefully in the future. And I think this data as well is another thing that the public is obviously very interested in, because the public are the attendees. And it would be great to have the exact identification of where these places are. And also have very important relevant information that's being built right now, like parking lot information and restroom information, or anything else that we can show in our great GIS system that the public would want if they're going to their programs or events.
Yeah, that great answer. Carter, great presentation. I think you generated a lot of excitement and attention to this project. I think we're definitely hitting up on ending the meeting. It's been great. If anybody has any more questions or want to talk advancing this project, please get in touch with us at the data analytics team. And then just a plug for the next session at 10, it's Jackie Hoban and Doug Stevens talking about tracking projects in a smarter way. So please join us in a little bit. Carter, thank you again so much. And Alex too for the cameo.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Stop.